Hey, good morning. I just clear out the field a little bit. So today I want to talk about, saw this wonderful post by a gentleman, and I've put it on my timeline just below this one, a gentleman named Clark Bodie. And he suggested something that kind of surprised me, and it also opened me. So he basically suggested that he's a highly empathic person, and he works with people, families, children, etc., and that he doesn't believe in protecting himself energetically. And that got my mind going, and I've always had a bit of reluctance when people say, okay, bring in the healing power of or protection power of Archangel Michael or Archangel Gabriel, etc. Always felt off to me. Now you can go and look around, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people that are going to talk a bunch of different stories about all those people, what they are. There's a definition of good, bad, light, dark, who's a protector, who's not a protector, etc. And it basically, there's nothing wrong with the belief of it, but I've come to a belief that I'm part of God, which we all are. It's not always in our conscious awareness as we're going through our awakening process, but I'm a part of God. And once you become and accept that you're a part of God, you have to accept everything that is. And I'm learning more and more and more every day that what we call darkness, what we call evil, what we call all these things that are happening in the world, there's a light purpose under them, but we call them darkness. We call them Klaus Schwabs and economic forums and agendas and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But these expressions of what we're calling evil or darkness or whatever came from us as human beings, as part of God. Those people, I believe in all my heart, are actually very wounded children, and people that we call that are demons or evil or whatever are expressions of lineage trauma, of control, of power, basically guiding a human into an experience that they have to be really controlling, they have to be really dark, they really have to be really angry or wounded to be able to survive, to crank the sandbox down and make it only their way or the highway, even at the expense of hurting other people. These energies exist as part of God. So I don't want to get into a lot of detail. I don't think we need to accept them or honor them or whatever. We just have to be aware that darkness is still part of the experience of God. And I'm going to guarantee if you've been around as a soul for a long time, you've been dark at some point or another. You've hurt people, you've wounded, you've killed, you've done versions of all this. Probably more than likely you were even some of the people that created some of the contraction that we have now. So when we can get to that point, I want to then start to ask, why do we need to protect ourselves? So I want to get really clear and separate from what I just discussed before, because that's a frame of reference that gives more awareness to this. But I want us to start to observe, okay, so when we decide that something bad is happening to us that we need protection from, whether you like it or not, I'm going to call it out right here, there's a victim in that perspective. It's like, I do not have power over this. I cannot deal with this. So I'm going to call it dark. I'm going to call it bad. And I'm going to start to contract. I'm going to step away and say, okay, I don't like this thing. I don't like how this feels. I don't like feeling what's going on in my body. I'm attacked by a demon or whatever. Well, okay. So that's happening. You're saying that that's happening, but you're giving that thing or whatever's happening power over you. And then you're saying, okay, I have to call an angel in to protect me from this, which just basically wraps you in a shield. You can put a shiny face on or whatever, but you still have given power to that thing to say that you cannot deal with it. And I understand that. And the energy is strong and it's scary and it's something that you're not comfortable with. But I'm going to tell you, deep down, several layers deep in that scary, we're not acknowledging our part in this. We're not acknowledging how this came to be. What was the event that chose that attached this demon or joined it into our lives or whatever? Until we can recognize and acknowledge that we're conscious creators, we will never overpower that thing. We can wrap ourselves in protection, bubble wrap, whatever you want to call it, all day long. But until you face what's there without the protection of some entity in front of you or some angel or some called in protection or your crystals or whatever, you will never get your power back. You will always require to have that thing that's going to protect you from having that feeling, which is just an avoidance of dealing with the feeling, a scared, an unhappy, discomfort. So to call in protection, which is a comfort mechanism, is an avoidance mechanism as well. And some people might not like this, but my highest intention is to get people through their discomfort, their struggle, their unhappiness as quickly as possible. And we're now at a point in this world where we got to look at everything. We got to look at all the stuff that's causing us, the attacks we're feeling, the discomfort we're feeling, etc. And it's all a part of us. Because we're a part of God. We're a part of a bigger thing. That darkness is an equal and opposite reaction to something that's going on inside of you that you don't like, that was programmed into you at a previous time, is a trauma, etc. So instead, if we can just get comfortable with acknowledging what is, not trying to dig a hole and put a big sheet of metal over top of us as protection, but instead saying, okay, lovingly say, okay, what is this feeling? Why am I unhappy? Why am I feeling attacked? Why is this thing darkness? Because I'm going to tell you right now, and I've dug through a lot of my darkness, you're going to find out that it's a part of you. It's an angry part of you that says this shouldn't happen, or people shouldn't be doing this, or whatever. And I will sit toe to toe with anyone, and we'll sit down and we'll discuss what the darkness is. But everything that we label dark has a purpose. Some of it's not fun. Some of it's not light and airy and whatever, but it has a purpose. It will crush us. It will wound us. It will rape us. It will whatever the thing is that's your trauma, and get you to be small, get you to get to the point where you're so alone and so unhappy and so afraid and so uncomfortable that you'll eventually look at something. And that something is different for everyone and different on every experience. But if we call in protection from this thing that's making us feel uncomfortable, are we looking at that thing? Are we doing the work inside that is being begged by our soul and forcing us to see these things that we call dark until we make a choice? And I'm going to tell you, once you've made that choice, your life will be absolutely and radically different. The darkest things will make the biggest change in our life. That's why so much dark things are going on right now. We're being asked to explore them. We're being asked to express them, to feel the emotions of them, to face them. I'm going to tell you right now, once you face them and you see what's underneath, you're going to take a little white face cloth and you're going to see that demon. You're going to dip it in water and you're going to rub it off and you're going to see your face in there. And most people aren't going to like that. But to have something that is that scary, that dark, that pushed away in the corner, it means it's a part of you. At some level, we were afraid. Some level, we wanted control. Some level, we wanted the power. We've got a group manifestation of all these things happening through these people in this world to try and correct the imbalance. How can you have a yin and a yang, and a yin and a yang is the white and dark symbol that's kind of like a 6 on each side? How can you have a yin and yang without balance? Well, we're in a world right now where we feel that the yang part or the dark part is 80 or 90% of it. So we have no balance. We have this thing that's kind of a black circle with a white dot in it. That white dot is getting crushed. Or that white dot has a huge opportunity to expand. So the darkness, if we protect ourselves from it, it's just adding armor. It's just giving it power and saying, I can't change this, I can't fix this, it's going to keep happening, so I got to hide behind this wall. And I want you to get this clarity in your head. Do you want to hide behind a wall? Or do you want to take your innate actual power? We're all part of God. We have this ability to, instead of protect ourselves and build up walls and barriers and words and fight back and all this kind of stuff, we have this ability to go inside and look at our shadow and look at this thing that's scary and wipe its face and start to see there's love underneath it. There's something underneath it, a wounded child, an angry, frustrated response to something that's happened. And if we can clean it up and we can make friends with it and we can talk to it, and I'm not talking make friends with cabal leaders and all this kind of stuff. I'm saying recognize that they're wounded children and that to give them all our power and say that they can hurt us and say they're going to take away all our things and all this kind of stuff gives it exactly that. But if we go and look at it and love it and say, okay, there's a wounded child underneath. We just need to clean and care for and remove the fears of that wounded child. And all of a sudden that's not going to happen. And the part we're healing is the part inside of us that's that wounded child, not going out and fixing the leaders or whatever, because the minute we have that fear and that doubt, we have identified that place within inside of us that's not okay with what is. And we have to find a place of being okay with what is, being okay that a part of us is wounded, a part of us has fear about this, a part of us is being crushed and feels like we're trying to be killed, but it's not actually true. It's forcing us to see the darkness within us, forcing us to see if we're a fragment of God, we're also a fragment of all these things that we call dark. So if we can now acknowledge that there's a piece that we call dark and now have the conscious knowledge to say, holy shit, that's a wounded inner child. I've got a wounded inner child like this too, and it's doing everything to try and control the world to protect me. All of a sudden you have power over it. You start to take your power back, and I'm not saying you hurt it or you coerce it or you control it. You wash that child off and you say, holy crap, I hear you. Holy crap, I love you. Hold it in your lap and say, I feel the wounds, I feel the fear, I feel the anger, I feel the frustration, and just let it be and let it pass through you. And then you're not fighting the world. You're not fighting that thing because you're acknowledging that it's a part of you. And I don't say that because we're accepting it and saying it's okay. We're acknowledging and accepting that it is, acknowledging and accepting that a lot of discussion has to happen. A lot of clarity has to happen. And once we can shower off and clean that darkness and allow it to express itself, the bubble cracks. How can you see something as a demon once the dirt is washed off and you see the innate terror that it's been living in and it's just been expressing it and we judged it? We don't see them as wounded children. We see them as people in power only because we've given our power away to them. If instead we're just smiling and saying, hey, I see you. Hey, let's talk about it because this is not helping anyone. And we deal with that inside of ourselves. We're not out rallying in the streets and chasing and trying to stop. We're acknowledging that that's a part of ourselves. And then we don't need protection from it. Can you imagine trying to heal a wounded child and you're through 10 feet of barbed wire trying to heal that inner child? Do you think that inner child's going to get comfortable with you, feel trust for you? No. It's just broadening the gap. It's just widening their fear. They're scared. They're whatever. So I'd ask you for a moment to ask why you need protection from something like that, why you need to hide, why there's demons flying around inside or whatever, and we got to wrap ourselves in a bunch of protection and give all this power to evil and draconians and all this kind of stuff. Those energies exist, and yeah, maybe they're passing through in the world or whatever, but they're not going to come and stop unless you got more work to do, unless there's something going on that's still inside that makes you afraid or angry or whatever. Once you acknowledge that you have that power, you don't have to filter it through someone else, and you stand in it and say, no fucking way, this isn't going to continue. Something beautiful happens. You become that part of God. You don't have to have an angel or some other protector between you and your innate power that's given to you as your birthright. So are we giving our power away? Are we a bit of a victim to something that we feel we can't control? And how can we change that? Well, it's simple. Go look at the part of us that feels uncomfortable, feels scared, whatever. Go sit with it. Go make amends. Go smile. Go wash it off. And you're going to find out that stuff is within your control. Stuff is within your conscious reality change. You can't fix it in everybody else's reality or on Facebook or whatever. You're going to sit with those parts of yourself. And eventually those parts of yourself won't let the power go away. All of a sudden it's going to realize, okay, that's a part of me. I'm scared about that. I don't know how I can deal with it. Well, accept it, allow it, let the emotions go, and then it's going to heal. So take a look at this. It's not an easy new concept, but it's truth. It's based in truth. So give it some thought, give it some love. Put some comments down below if you disagree or something's not in alignment, and let's see what shows up. Have a good day. I love you all. You have fun, and this is not a simple one, so go easy on yourself and breathe and drink lots of water and see what shows up as you explore it.